MCU news and rumors, and a little bit of comic history coming at you, Defects. What's up, Defects? Boy, do we have a good one for you today. Feeling like an old school show, The Butcher. What do you think, brother?
Oh, I'm excited. A ton of news, possible favorite characters coming into the MCU, people getting fired, possibly. Castings have been made. I mean, a lot to talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now that the writer's strike and the actor's strike is over, it seems like a lot of this news is coming to light. And maybe the MCU is gonna be pointing in the right direction. We're a little skeptical here, especially Jay's a little bit more skeptical than me, and I get it, and I totally understand why. They've given us nothing to go on so far in the last few phases, but maybe we're going in the right direction. But today we just want to talk about something specific. The whole setup of this whole saga was supposed to be around Kang, and that could possibly be coming to an end, Butcher.
I mean, there was rumors about this in the past when Jonathan Majors had his legal troubles. He seemed to get by. Now more people are seeing him to step up, and Marvel might have to pull the plug. We already know Jeff Loveness, the writer of Ant-Man and the Quantumania, is released. He won't be going forward with that project. We also know Watiti is done. So the MCU and Feige might be listening to the fans because it's evident it hasn't been what it was. Loki season 2 was good. I did enjoy that. It's kind of, we'll get into that. It's kind of taken the MCU into a different direction. But I mean, let's unwrap this all, Matt.
Yeah, let's get into it. All right, so what we're focusing on today, like Jay talked about earlier, is the possible replacement or the backup plan for Jonathan Majors Kang, because it sounds like the Avengers, Kang Dynasty, and him as the central figure of the central villain of this phase in Secret Wars could be coming to an end. All right, and Jay alluded to it before. Jeff Loveness is no longer employed by Marvel, and sources are saying he thinks it's because the Kang storyline is now finished. Another reason that we kind of came to this, the reason why we really made this video is we heard that article, and then what really happened was the end of Loki season 2. So if you haven't watched that yet, it's been about a week, so I feel like it's been a safe amount of time, but just in case, here comes a spoiler. At the very end of that of episode 6 of season Loki 2, they allude back to the events of Ant-Man and how essentially what they said is a variant of He Who Remains was causing trouble in a realm adjacent, or the quantum realm adjacent to 616, but the heroes of 616 took care of that. It almost became like an afterthought, Jay, right? I mean, they just kind of like brushed it to the side, and I feel like they did that on purpose to leave the door open for either replacing him or not. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny because I finally watched the season finale of Loki last night. Like I said, I enjoyed the series a lot better than the first series. And Mobius does say that. He said there was a Kang variant in the 616 that's already been taken care of. So, like you said, Matt, that's a little like exit door for them right there if they decide not to move forward with the Kang character, which it seems like they're not. It seems more the MCU is rebooting a lot. They rebooted Daredevil, right? That didn't even take off the ground yet, and they scrapped that. And now the Kang Dynasty. I mean, I'm looking forward to future projects, and what I'm thinking is if they move forward with Secret Wars the way they intend to, they could pretty much scrap everything that's been going on with the multiverse. But we'll get into that further as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know if they're going to scrap. I mean, before we get to that, so if at the end of Loki season 2, we saw that He Who Remains, who seemed to be like kind of the central figure of the Kang so far, right? He's been the most reoccurring character. He was kind of replaced by Loki, right? At
Right.
the at
Yep.
the place at the end of time, or at the end of time, it was no longer He Who Remains in the throne. It was Loki kind of in the throne, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. I don't know if they're going to scrap Secret Wars altogether. It seems like there's been too much groundwork laid at this point for that. I mean, and that's a video we can probably get into as we get a little bit more information. But I think they're going to try to do Secret Wars with maybe another central figure. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. It's 3 or 4 characters that we think could be coming in, you know, kind of like a piece that I think would exist either way, and then some possible replacements for Kang. So, Jay, I'll give you the floor first. Who do you think we could see as a possible replacement for Kang? And we'll get into a little bit of the comic history of Secret Wars and these characters. So, boys and girls, get your pen and paper ready because it's classroom time.
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna go forward with Secret Wars, which looks like they're going to go forward with instead of the Kang Dynasty, there's pivotal characters that the MCU is gonna have to use, right? I mean, we all know they dip and dive and they change storylines, but number one is the Beyonder, right? He's the creator of Battle World. He's the one that put Secret Wars together. This was back in I think 1984. From we had Jim Shooter on the writing, Bob Layden on the art, and that awesome Mike Zeck art. And if you guys didn't know, back then this storyline was created to actually sell the Secret Wars figures back in the day. So Marvel wanted to create something to push these figures out to everyone, and they went out to Jim Shooter and he wrote this storyline with all these different characters. You have Spidey, Avengers, X-Men, you have Doom, you have the Beyonder, you have Ultron, you have Galactus. So it was one of the first major Marvel story arcs, right? Kind of to combat DC's crisis. So I mean, we're talking about the Beyonder here, right? Secret Wars number one. You get his cameo as a white light and a voice. I mean, cameo as a voice, I don't know so much, but that's what most people consider it. And then we have Secret Wars 2, number one. That's his first appearance. You see him as an avatar, and you see him in his physical form pretty much as an avatar of multiple superheroes. So
Yep. Hmm.
2 cheap books that you could definitely be on the lookout for. But the book I like the best, and probably the version of the Beyonder that we will see in the MCU if they decide to move forward with this character and this original storyline, is Secret Wars 2, number 3, where you see him as his first human form, kind of like that Rick James
Yeah.
black curly hair vibe, just all dapped out, ready for a disco, right? So again, guys,
Absolutely.
books that 100% came down in price, but that Secret Wars 2, number 3, him in his human form, that's a book we've talked about in the past, and I like, guys. And again, the Beyonder created the Battle World. He created all this. The Secret Wars is all based around him. So, I mean, how do they not move forward with a character like Beyonder?
I like it. Like you said, the two Secret War 2, 1, and 3 are cheaper books for sure. The number one, even though it's his cameo, it has the value because it's Secret Wars 1, right? So it's kind of like a dual spec. So you can't really use, I don't want to say you can't use it as the Beyonder, but it has values for other reasons. A book though, Jay, that everyone kind of forgets about, and for good reason because there's no appearance. But the first time we ever hear about the Beyonders, Jay mentioned the Beyonder, which is one of the Beyonders. Okay. And that people get a little confused by that. When we talk to people, we notice that they don't realize that the Beyonders is more than one figure. And in the Secret Wars, they're just focusing on simply just one. But in Marvel 2-in-1 number 63, the first volume, it is the first time that the Beyonders get mentioned. And this is a Warlock, Guardians, and High Evolutionary storyline where some aliens, we don't really know who they are. They're not really pivotal to the storyline, but they say they've been contracted by the Beyonders. Okay, so that is the first time we ever actually get mentioned with that book, of this race. So a little bit about the Beyonders, because I do think it's a good replacement for, as a main villain, whether it's the Beyonder, who's kind of like a immature, like younger version of, not version, but a younger, immature member of the Beyonders race. And we figure that out later as he continues to go through comics, through Secret Wars 1, 2, and then the Hickman run.
Right.
But the Beyonders as a race could possibly be, connected to what we've already seen, because they were created by the Celestials. Okay. And we've already seen Eternals, and we know the Celestials are in the MCU. And we know, it seems like we've been getting Eternals 2 news coming out, and it looks like the Celestials just can't just be gone. They have to be some
Right.
part of the storyline somehow. So that kind of fits there. That's a piece of the puzzle that kind of fits together. The Beyonders also exist outside of the multiverse, which again kind of makes sense because now you have this overarching, presence that sits on top of the multiverse. Because we've seen with the multiverse, Jay, they've basically been able to do whatever they want, which has
Right.
been leading to some lazy writing, right?
Right.
We both
Yep.
agree on that.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
so, I mean, that makes a lot of sense for the Beyonders to be either at least involved. And I'll get to another theory later on, but them as the possible replacement as the big bad, I like. At a minimum, them being involved, I think is important to know because they have such an important role in all the other characters that we're going to talk about, Jay.
Yeah. Nope. 100% agree with all of that.
So, a character that you can't leave out if you're talking about Secret Wars and the Beyonders. All right, I don't want to jump the gun and say the next character, but we'll kind of add in. He's kind of like he's not the main act, but he's like that undercard that's really important, right? And Jay, that's Molecule Man, right?
Yeah.
All the Secret Wars storylines, all three of them have revolved around Owen Reese, Molecule Man from 616. So you want to talk a little bit about this real quick?
Yeah. So it's hard to get into this without getting into other characters, guys,
Sure.
but well, let's just jump right into it, guys. Like Matt said, the Beyonders could be, I would say, a stepping stone into Marvel's next big bad if they do decide to part ways with Jonathan Majors and the Kang character. But like Matt said, the Molecule Man, he is used by Doctor Doom to absorb powers. And like Matt said, he's in Secret Wars 1, Secret Wars 2, also in the Hickman run as a major character. Like now, Matt, I don't have what's a good price point on a Fantastic Four number 20 because not many people talk about the Molecule Man. But again, if they're going to stick to storylines, especially from Secret Wars 1, 2, and the Hickman Assad Ribic run, they're going to have to somehow mold Molecule Man into this.
Yeah, this is a, Fantastic Four number 20, 1963. Clearly it's an early Fantastic Four, but being such a pivotal character, this is not a cheap book. So you're not running out to buy this. And again, we're not using this episode as like a spec book kind of video. It's more along the lines of trying to figure out who's next. And there's a couple books in here that are cheaper in value that we've talked about already and you'll see going forward. But this is more along the lines of kind of speculating, but using the comic books and the history of that to kind
Right.
of educate ourselves and talk to you guys about it and get your feedback. So it's a kind of a mixture of a spec versus like a comic history type of thing. So that's how we're treating it. But to answer your question, Jay, this is not a cheap book. I mean, anything like probably above a 2 is going to be a triple digit book, even
Yeah.
raw. So
Early
this is
Fantastic Four.
right. And like Jay said, the Molecule Man was created by a freak accident with atomic radiation. And we've come to find out that the Beyonders actually created that accident to use him, and they created to give them these crazy powers. And basically, they created a Molecule Man in every universe, reality, however you want to call it, multiversal stream, to eventually become a bomb that they set off all at the same time to destroy the multiverse, Jay. So that's how we could see possibly. We've already seen the timelines trying to be destroyed by the TVA or members of the TVA. Maybe they carry that along and use the Molecule Man to do it. So that's a connection of the Molecule Man and the Beyonders. You did mention Doom, though, Jay. I don't know if you want to jump into Doom or you have something else to talk about with Molecule Man.
No, you know what? I do have something to say about Molecule Man, but we could use that as we go forward with the Doom
Okay,
character. But
let's do it. Yeah, you want to jump right into, I mean, we don't have to talk about the first appearance of Doom, right? We just
yeah, I
talk
mean,
about,
guys,
you know,
you guys know Pricey Books, FF5, his first appearance. Then we have, you know, Superheroes 20. We have a bunch of books that Doom fans should have already gotten. But we're not going to talk about Doom. We're going to talk about what Doom could eventually turn into as the next big bad. We already have castings for Fantastic Four, so we know Doom is probably on his way. It's heavily rumored everywhere on social media that Doom will be replacing Kang moving forward as the next big bad. So let's talk about some Secret Wars from that Hickman Assad Ribic run. We got Secret Wars number 2, his first appearance as God Emperor Doom. We have Secret Wars number 4, just that awesome cover appearance. And then we have that Secret Wars number 4, second print, which is just a killer cover, guys. Alex Ross on these covers, Assad Ribic on the interiors, and Hickman writing. So basically, what this turns into is God absorbs the. Sorry, God Emperor Doctor Doom absorbs the powers of the Beyonders using Molecule Man and turns himself into God Emperor Doom. What does God Emperor Doom do? He destroys all other alternate universes, right? Destroys the multiverse. This is where I could see it making sense. We've been on the multiverse for a long time now, right? And like Matt said, it's an easy caveat for the MCU and Feige just to change things around. But they know that's hurting, guys. They see box office numbers dropping. They know they have to change things up. Let's get rid of this multiverse. How are we going to get rid of this multiverse? What if God Emperor Doom, Doctor Doom, destroys this multiverse and then you're just left with the 616 moving forward? This makes a lot of sense to me, Matt. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, so number two is his. What would you say? That's his first appearance, and then the
Yeah,
four is
number.
the cover, right?
Yep. Just awesome,
Okay.
awesome covers. Yep.
Yep. So Doom was an important part of all of the Secret War sagas, 1, 2, and 3. I'll call Hickman's run 3.
Yep.
In the first one, he tried to absorb the Beyonders' powers, and he did partially, but he couldn't. And when he was able to, using Molecule Man in Hickman's run, what he did was essentially the same thing that the Beyonder did. He destroyed everything. He teleported certain heroes and villains, created a battle world basically for his entertainment, right? We know that he used the Thor core, right, which we've heard heavily rumored as his like kind of like personal goon squad to do his bidding, so he didn't have to. Um, it makes a ton of sense. We've had a ton of rumors about Doom. We've heard this rumor started with Doom being the replacement for Kang probably about a month ago. Now
Right.
we're hearing, after Loki ended, it picked up steam again without an attached name to it, but we assume Doom has to be a possibility. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. However, I got to be honest, my personal opinion is maybe because I wouldn't want it to happen because it feels like that means they would have to rush through Doom,
Yep.
right?
Uh,
Um, Now, the one thing they always said is we've been talking about a Doom solo series to kind of either introduce him or to follow up immediately after his first appearance. And the problem was Kevin Feige always said he would never do villain solo stories. And Doom, you could say he's a villain a lot of the times, anti-hero. But guess what? We just got an Echo series announced, which Marvel has announced that she will be a villain in the series. So that is a good sign that it opens the door for possibly something like this for Doom, a solo movie, a solo series. So maybe his kind of intro into the MCU gets, I don't want to say forced along, but it gets a little bit more dense, a little quicker because now you can have that solo project for him. Because to go right from Doom to to God Emperor Doom, I feel like you'd be doing the character injustice, Jay. I feel like we'd probably be upset with that if they didn't really flesh him out properly before this happens.
in my opinion, in a perfect world, if I was writing for the MCU or if I was giving ideas, we all know Pedro Pascal was just announced as Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards, right? A casting I don't like per se, only because you have an actor in his 40s that's going to be playing this character.
Yep.
So we know we're already getting an older Fantastic Four. What I would like to do is introduce the Fantastic Four. You bring Doctor Doom in at the end credit scene, and it goes right into his solo movie, setting everything up for Doctor Doom. And maybe at the end of that solo movie, you get God Emperor Doom, or the steps being taken to become God Emperor Doom, and setting up Secret Wars. We don't know if the MCU is going to go with Secret. It's not going to be Secret Wars 2, right? It's either going to be Secret Wars 1 or it's going to be this Hickman run.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
in a perfect world, set him up Fantastic Four, bring him in end credit scene, give him his own solo movie. There's too much history behind Doctor Doom to, like Matt said, rush it all into one movie or rush it into a Fantastic Four movie. He needs to be set up. He's a fan favorite, one of the greatest villains, if not the greatest villain in Marvel history. So just do him some justice. Fans would go absolutely crazy with a Doom solo movie.
100%. And if you want some extra Doom history, we have a video on this channel, and I'll link it up above one of our heads, top right hand corner, that gives a little backstory about some of those storylines that include Doom and Doctor Strange and Cynthia Von Doom. There's so much rich history. So go watch that video. It's a really good one. It's from a year and a half ago or so, but it still applies. So another dope book that Jay brought up was Secret Wars 10. This is from that original run. This is when he partially absorbs the Beyonder's power. When I say the Beyonder, I mean the individual as the Beyonder. In the Hickman run, it is the Beyonders that he absorbs their power. So another cool book. I don't want to say it's cheap, but it's still like a $20 book, probably, Jay.
Yeah.
Right? This one's still on the relative cheap.
Looking to clean and press your books before submission? Well, look no further than the best in the business, Erod 212 with Express Comic Book Pressing Service. Defects 10 gets you 10% off. Erod will submit your books to CGC and CBCS and pass along his discount. Hit him up on Instagram or email expresscbp@yahoo.com.
100%. And we're just basically scratching the surface. We're trying not to, because it gets very, very involved. So we didn't want it, this video would be an hour long. So we didn't want to get too, we're giving you the kind of the top level stuff with the main characters and the villains, possible replacement for Kang. Now, having said what we've said about Doom, and because of that rich history, and like I said, I personally don't think there's enough time. I have another theory that I've shared with Jay, and he'll expand on it too to see what he thinks on a possible replacement for Kang that we already have in the MCU. Okay, so we spoke about it earlier. We said that Loki replaced He Who Remains at the end of time. We saw at the end of Loki, he's sitting at what looks like, everyone's saying Yggdrasil, the world tree. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's a representation of it. That's his representation of kind of the loom now for all of the timelines. But I do believe that Loki will be the replacement for Kang by replacing God Emperor Doom. Okay? And here's a shot of what I'm talking about. So on the left side there of the screen, that's a shot from Secret Wars, the Hickman run, God Emperor Doom, sitting on his throne in Battle World on top of this tree. I forget what the tree is called, but if you look to the right, we have that happen at the end of Loki. You have Loki sitting on a throne at the end of time, outside of the multiverse, right, or kind of at the end of the multiverse, and he forms all the timelines into this tree. A very, very similar connection between God Emperor Doom in Secret Wars Hickman's run and at the end of Loki season 2. The character would not have to be developed because he is already developed. He's already in the MCU, so there's no time. I don't want to say wasted, but you're not rushing to develop this major character. It's clear that Loki's not done. It kind of felt like he finally gained that glorious purpose that he's always talked about. So I don't see him going bad, but I do see maybe the connection between the Beyonders influencing Loki, since they sit on top of the multiverse, to kind of create Battle World, right? To kind of destroy. Maybe somehow Loki gets temporarily corrupted by the Beyonders to do their bidding, and he creates Battle World, and he kind of becomes it. You know that the MCU never follows the comics, so
Right.
they always take pieces. Yep. So I'm trying to think like Kevin Feige would. How do I connect pieces? And that, I feel like, is bringing in the Beyonders, which you almost have to have, bringing in a character which is essentially the most important character in the MCU right now, right? You got to say is Loki because he's holding it all together, to create this Battle World, to create Secret Wars. So, I mean, to me, that's how I see them commingling the role of God Emperor Doom without bringing in Doom, and bringing in the Beyonders as kind of like the overarching big bad, and using Loki in his powerful seat right now to do their bidding. That's kind of what I came up with based on everything we've talked about. What do you think, Jay? Am I right? Am I wrong? Add something if I missed it.
I could see that. I mean, I don't think Loki goes back to being bad at this point. I think he is the key. I think he's the keeper of time. They made that evident in Loki series 2 towards the final episodes, when he's showing, the one that remains, he could stop time, he can manipulate time. I think they use him forward as that character. But listen, we have time before Secret Wars come out. We just got X-Men into the MCU, right? We've had the Avengers. We're getting the Fantastic Four. I think that they're going to set the phases up where they had the most success, like they did with Thanos, a slow burn up
Hmm.
until the Infinity Saga, right? Up until the Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet. I think they're going to do the same. They're going to set up the X-Men. They're going to set up more Avengers. They're going to set up a couple of more characters moving forward. Then they're going to set up Secret Wars. And that's a recipe that worked in the past. But I don't see Loki as the next big bad. I think he had his redemption story, and I think he stays as is.
All right, guys. So I know a little bit of a longer video today, but like we said, we wanted it to kind of feel like almost like the live show feel, which don't worry, we'll be doing a live show at some point soon. All right. But let us know in the comments. Do you think it's one of these scenarios? Is it the Beyonders? Is it God Emperor Doom with the Beyonders? Is it Loki with the Beyonders? Or is it a character that we didn't mention, like Jay just mentioned at the end, like maybe a Magneto? Tell us what you think in the comments of what the how this plays out in the MCU. Do us a favor while you're down there, hit that thumbs up. It only takes a second. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that notification bell if you're already subscribed. This way you know when we're putting out content, which is every Tuesday and Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then, guys, over on Whatnot, Thursday nights, 9:45 Eastern, after Very Gary, after Erod. Click it on the screen right now. You get $15 off your first purchase. Link is down below. And, guys, until the next video, later, Defects.